Hi guys, you're welcome to my channel. If you're tuning into this channel for the very first time, you're welcome. If you're returning subscribers, thank you for tuning into my channel. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to be learning how to draft a basic bodies. So the first thing I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be marking out my borderline. Once I'm done marking out my borderline, I'll move on to mark out my boss point. I'll mark out I'll indicate my boss point. Once I'm done marking out my boss point, I'm going to divide my shoulder width by 2. Then I'm going to mark out what I got, and I had 7 inches. I'll just go ahead to mark out my 7 inches. I went ahead to rule my boss point. Once I'm done ruling my boss point, I'll move up 1.5 inches away from upwards from my boss point. Then I'll rule that line. Once I'm done, at that same point, I'm just going to mark out my shoulder width measurement at my new true boss line. So once I'm done, I'm moving ahead to mark out 1.5 inches for shoulder slant, and I'll move on to marking out 3 inches for my neck width, 3 by 3. Then once I'm done marking out my neck width, I'm just going to slant my shoulder width. So once I'm done with that, for my true bust line, that's my true bust line, I'm just going to go up by 3 inches, and this will become my chest line. Once I'm done with that, I'm just going to be marking out my across chest measurement. I'll mark out my across chest measurement, and once I'm done marking out my across chest measurement, mind you, your across chest measurement is going to be divided by 2, just like you divide your shoulder measurement. I went ahead to draw out the curve of my neck. My neck width was 3 inches by 3 inches. I went ahead to curve it. Then I'm moving on to divide my bust measurement by 4 inches, and I had 8.5, and I just marked my 8.5 inches. Then I moved on to marking out my front half length. I went ahead to mark out my front half length. My front half length was 17 inches, and I went ahead to square out the line for my front half length. And once I'm done with that, I'm just going to I'm just going to elongate the line because I'm going to be making a full bodice pattern. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to divide my waist measurement by 4. I divided my bust by 4. I also divide my waist measurement by 4 inches. And once I'm done dividing, I'll just mark out my result. I had 6.5 inches for my waist, and I went ahead to mark 1.5 inches for my dart allowance. And once I'm done with that, I'm just going to connect my bust point to my waistline. I'm just going to connect it. And once I'm done, I move on to marking out my bust span measurement. My bust span measurement is 7 inches. 7 divided by 2, I had 3.5, and I went ahead to mark 3.5, and I went up at my bust point and marked 3.5, and I connected the lines together. So I moved on to dividing my 1.5 inches, which I added at my waist measurement for my dart, and I divided it by 2, and I added each of my figures to each leg of the dart in order for me to get my dart. So once I'm done marking, I went ahead to go up by 1 inch in order to avoid my back gap, because my front half length is not the same thing with my back half length. I went ahead to mark out my waist to hip measurement in order to have the full blouse length, and I'm not going to be marking for my center front measurement. I'm going to be marking for my raised waistline, because I'm not going to be using my old waistline. I'm just going to be working with my raised waistline, and my waist to hip measurement was 8 inches, and I'll just go ahead to square my 8 inches. So the next thing I'm going to be doing, I'll move on to dividing my hip measurement by 4. Once I'm done, what I'll mark out my result at my waist to hip line, and my hip measurement divided by 4 gave me 9 inches, and I'm just going to be connecting that 9 inches to my raised waist, which I raised by 1 inches. I mistakenly connected it to my old waistline. So I'm just going to be connecting to my raised waist. And once I'm done with that, I'm just going to lengthen my dart. And once I'm lengthening my dart, I'm not going to lengthen my dart to the full blouse length. For the front, I'll go up by 2 inches from my waist to hip line. And once I'm done going up, I'm just going to connect the darts together. And look at how our dart is looking so nice. So I'll move on to completing our upper parts because we didn't finish everything. So it's just remaining to curve the armhole. And I'm just using my curve ruler to curve my armhole. Once I'm done with that, I'll just move ahead to drafting the back of my pattern, and I'm just labeling the pattern. That's my bust point, this is my waist point, that's my true bust line, and the upper one is my chest line, while the lower one is my hip line. So once I'm done with the front, I'll just move my paper so I'll be able to draft out my back pattern. So once I'm done doing that, I'll just square a line. I'll just square a line to enable me draft out my back pattern. So I'm repeating the same process. I'm adding my border line before I start drafting my pattern. So once I'm done with that, I'm just going to connect from my raised waistline, that point there. I'm just going to connect it straight so I will know where my back, I'm going to start my waistline for the back measurement. So it aligns with my measurement for the front. If you're a bit confused about the raised waistline, I have a video. I'm just going to link it to this video that you're going to watch on how to reduce back gape. So that's a very explanatory video. So I'll repeat the same process. I the same process for the front. I got my shoulder width divided by 2. I connected it to my bust point. For my bust point line, I went up by 1.5 to get my armhole measurement. And for my back neck, I'm going to be going in by 3 inches by 1 inches for the back. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to slant my shoulder measurement by 1.5. So for my across back is the same thing as my shoulder width. So there's no need for me to measure it. I'm just going to measure from my true bust line to my shoulder line. Whatever I have, just going to centralize it, and that will be my across back measurement. I went ahead to measure my bust measurement, what I have at the front, and I divided my bust measurement by 4, and I went ahead to mark it. My bust measurement divided by 4 is 8.5, so I'll just mark that 8.5, and I just connected my armhole curve together, connected my across back to my armhole line. So I just gave it a nice curve. And I went ahead to mark out my waist measurement. My waist measurement is divided by 4, and I also marked 1.5 inches for my dart allowance. Once I'm done with that, I'll just connect my bust to my waist measurement. So after doing that, I mark out my waist to my hip measurement, and I'm just going to be squaring across from my waist to hip measurement point. And once I'm done with that, I'm just going to be dividing my hip measurement by 4, and I'm going to be marking out what I got. And my hip measurement divided by 4 is 9 inches, and I'm just going to be connecting my 9 inches straight to my waist point. Once I'm done with that, I will go ahead to mark out my bust span measurement divided by 2 plus half of an inch. And the reason for the half of an inch is because of our back contouring that we're going to be doing. When we get there, you see what we did. And for the front, we went up by 2 inches, while for the back, we are going to be going up by 3 inches because of the presence of our bum, because of the presence of our bum bum or our bum. That's why you have to go up by 3 inches, not to compress the measurement that's supposed to accommodate your bust measurement. And I'm doing my back contouring now. At that same 3 inches where I stopped for my dart, that's also where I'm going to contour the back of my dress too. I marked out half of an inch from the 1.5 inches that I added at the back. So I'm left with 1 inches that measurement. At my across back line, I've ruled it for you to see. At my across back line, I'm just going to I'm just going to roll a slanted line from my across back line to the half an inch measurement that I added at the waist measurement. So we are left with 1 inches that. So I'm just going to be sharing my 1 inches that for the two leg of our dart. I'm just going to be marking half of an inch at one side and half of an inch at the other side. So see the reason why we added half of an inch to our bust span measurement, so as to centralize our back measurement after we have contoured the back. So this is my back pattern and this is my front pattern. I hope we the basic bodice was very explanatory and easy to understand. If you have any question, feel free to drop it at the comment section.